The past few weeks we've been speaking about various parts of the human being, the guf and the neshama, one's body and the soul, a little bit about their differences. And soon we're going to be getting into the various limitations that this human being has and what he needs to do in this world to accomplish his mission. Tonight's topic is about the limitations. It's more of an introduction about why the human being is limited. Why does he have to be limited? I mentioned briefly that in some ways he's not limited. He has free will. That means he can make certain decisions on his own. But as we will see in the coming weeks, there are certain limitations. One of the most powerful limitations is the limitation called mazal, which we'll be talking about at length. What is exactly the mazal of one's destiny, one's fate? And depending on what that destiny and fate is, there's very little flexibility. But today we need to understand why the human being has limitations and what some of those limitations are. I think it was last week I mentioned the fact that the human being from all creation is in many ways the most inferior. If we talk about his physical body, it's very inferior to other animals, to other creatures in this world. Why is it inferior? Because the essence of the human being really is the neshama, not the body. The body is sachakol, is a garment which clothes the neshama. In order for the neshama, the soul, to function in this world of asiyah, of deeds, of actions, it needs to be in a physical body. But the essence of the human being is the neshama. The limitations of this physical body are obvious. The human being does not have the ability to fly like an eagle, does not have the sharp vision of the eagle. Even though it could swim, I don't think there's any human being that can swim like a fish and keep his head down underwater for too long, because we need oxygen. Human being is always in need of some kind of help. There's a certain dependency on others, especially when he's a baby. Not like animals that within a couple hours they're almost on their own, feeding for themselves. So we see from all of this that the human being has various physical limitations. If the human being were to pay close attention to himself, to his abilities, one of the first things that he would notice is that even though he has been given dominion, shlita, in this world, he is the crown of creation, he's the most important part of creation. I mean, depending on what the human being does, makes a big difference in this world. So even though the human being will realize that he's very important, if he thinks a little bit more about it, if he pays close attention to his abilities, he will come to notice that he does not have complete say in what happens in this world. There is a term that's used for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for God, and that is Hakol Yachol. He's capable of doing everything. Well, the human being, hopefully, will come to this realization that Shu'ulok Hakol Yachol, that he is not capable of doing just anything he wants. And that's a very important point, that one has to realize that we're simply not capable of doing anything we wish to do. That's the physical body. If you look a little bit further, and not everybody takes this additional step, but if you contemplate, reflect a little bit further, the human being will come to realize that his mind, the brains, is also limited. That even though he's more developed and he's more intelligent than everything else in this world, he is not capable of grasping everything. He's not capable of understanding everything. Even though he may think he's very smart, at some point he may realize that it's just not possible for him to understand everything. There is a very nice mashal that the Rambam brings in his famous book on philosophy, Moreh Nevuchim, about those who attempt to understand everything, to figure out everything, who claim that it's possible on one own to be able to understand this whole creation. And he says, no, that's not possible. What does this compare to? And he brings the mashal of a little child whose mother passed away ever since he was a little baby, And his father took him to an island where there was only men and no women. And at some point the child grew up and started asking questions. How did I come into this world? And the father tells him, you were in the mother's womb for 9 months, where you developed until you came out, and little by little you grew up to be what you are right now. And when I was in this womb for 9 months, did I eat, drink, breathe? So the father says, no. You did not do that in the mother's womb. It is not possible. So the boy says, if that's the case, I don't believe your version. Because I know for a fact that I cannot go without eating, drinking, and breathing in this physical world. That I know for a fact. For too long I cannot. And you say for 9 months I was not breathing, in other words, on his own. Eating and drinking. What do we see from this mashal? That the child, based on his observation, is assuming certain things, reaching certain conclusions, but there are erroneous conclusions. He doesn't fully fathom, doesn't fully grasp what can be going on in a mother's womb that would allow him to survive this ordeal of 9 months. What other mechanisms are in place to allow that? He has no idea. There's no books on biology in the island. There's no mother, there's no woman to ask. I mean, how is he supposed to know? All he knows is based on what he has experienced, and based on his experience, that's not possible. If that's not possible, he doesn't want to buy that story. But that's not right. There's a lot of things we're not aware of. There's a lot of things we do not know. There's a lot of things we cannot possibly know. The human being therefore has to continuously remember, as smart as he may be, that brain is also limited. And it has its limitations. There's certain things that it will never know. Now, if one looks at the whole creation, one will see that everything in creation has limits. Limits or borders. And the reason for that is, the simple reason is because if we're talking about the physical, everything has a shape. Everything therefore has a limit, whether it's square or round, whether it's a table or a chair. Everything has limits. Limits, now we're talking about the size of something. In other words, we're able to delineate its contours, right? Where it is, what it is, and how much space it takes. It has a certain limit. It's not just infinite. Because of its very nature that it's physical, the physical nature of a being or of an object also gives it its tzura, its shape, its form. Whether it's Jupiter or Saturn, regardless. Everything has a shape and form, and all those shapes and forms have a limit. Because this physical world is a world of limits. There are limitations. Because that which is physical is by its nature limited. Now, why did Hashem make this kind of a world? That everything is limited? Well, not only is everything limited in the physical sense, but everything is also limited in its function, in what it could accomplish, in what it could do. In other words, we can't just do anything we want, neither can an animal do everything it wants. Everything is limited by what functions it could perform. And there are basically 3 explanations as to why this needs to be like this. Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu limit us? Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu limit everything in the world? Why can't we fly? Wouldn't it be nice to fly? Like a bird, just get off. You know how much traffic you would avoid? You know, it would be great. Just fly over there. Right? Hashem did not give us that ability, did not give us wings. But why do the birds have wings? Why do they get to fly? Did you ever think about that? Certain animals have camouflage. Just imagine, you don't want to be seen by your wife. You want to camouflage yourself one day. You can't do that. Right? You want to be able to see what's going on 2 miles from here. We barely can see what's going on 100 feet from us, even with glasses. Right? You can't. We don't have that kind of vision. We don't have the ears of certain animals, that they are able to pick up signals from far away. And the bat, just look at the bat, it's pretty much blind. And at night, when it's also dark, somehow it knows how to catch all these insects through some sort of radar system. Really, it's a kind of a radar system that they have, that Hashem gave it. What do we see from all this? Everything has something. No one has everything. Everyone is limited in some way. But what does this limitation tell us? The limitation, one of the things the limitation tells us is that everyone was given a certain function. In other words, everything has a certain function, a certain mission. And therefore it was given the kelim to survive. It was given the ability to whatever it needs for its survival, right? It was given whatever it needs to accomplish whatever it needs to accomplish, its mission. Plus it was also given something called time. Time is also something that is given because we spend a certain amount of time in this world, and so do animals. For what purpose? To accomplish that mission. So we all have a certain function, right? We all have the kelim for our survival, and we all have a given amount of time where we need to accomplish whatever it is that we need to accomplish. So that's one explanation as to why things are limited. The limitation demonstrates what this animal is for. This animal was designed and created for this purpose. The limitations, therefore, the functionality that it has, serves that purpose. You understand that? The first explanation as to what the limitation is all about. It gives us a little bit of background. It gives us information about this creature, including the human being. The human being does not have to fly. It doesn't have to, obviously. If we needed to fly, Hashem would have given us the ability to, but we don't need to. We can get along and get around just fine without flying. I mean, today we need airplanes to get where we want. We got used to it. But Baruch Hashem, we've been able to build boats and cars, and we can walk, Baruch Hashem, as long as we're healthy. We're able to get around. Hashem figures we don't need to be able to fly. So this physical limitation of what one can do shows a little bit about what the tachlit, what the purpose of this creature is all about. Number two, you know why limitation is important? Oy vavoy if there would be no limitation. There would be a chaos and not order. Limitation is necessary to maintain a certain order, a certain structure, a certain discipline in this world. Could you imagine what man would do if he was given complete reign to do anything he wishes under the sun? It would be terrible. Because even though man has free will, which allows him some flexibility to do wicked things, terrible things, you think Hashem always lets him get away with it? We had some crazy people in Russia, in the government, prime ministers. What held them back from launching a nuclear missile to the United States? What made them take out the missiles from Cuba? You think Kennedy was so convincing? Hashem did not allow a nuclear confrontation to take place. You mean one human being will determine that millions of people are killed just like that? That can't happen. Hashem does not want the extinction of the human race.
What about the H-bomb?
What?
What about the H-bomb?
The hydrogen bomb, yeah.
That in Hiroshima.
You mean the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Yeah.
Well, obviously that was definitely a demonstration of what the human being is capable of doing in the 20th century. But that was limited to 2 cities. And then obviously that was a real need for the American people. Why should they lose an additional 50,000 soldiers when they can finish this whole job with 2 bombs? So it made some sense if that was the only way to stop the war. Hopefully that shouldn't have to happen again, but who knows? HaKadosh Baruch Hu obviously has a plan and doesn't allow everybody to just do what they want. He allowed it to happen. If he did not want all that to happen, he of course would not have put it into Truman's mind to make Truman made the decision, nobody else. He had the final say whether we go with this approach or not. And we have a famous tradition. The Pasuk says in Mishlei very clearly that Lev Melachim V'Sarim B'Yad Hashem, that the hearts of kings is in the hands of Hashem. Why? Just the hearts of kings? Yes, especially the hearts of kings, because they make major decisions that affect a lot of people.
World leaders.
World leaders, they make major decisions. They can't just do what they want. So number two, therefore, there needs to be limitations, otherwise this world would be in chaos and not in order. Number three. Before we go to number three, I just gave you an example of the human being's limitations. There is a limitation in nature too. Gvul samta layam. Hashem has given boundaries to the oceans of the water, to the waters of the ocean, to the body of water that we call the ocean, that it should not go too far. What happens to all the big waves? As soon as they hit the sand, they come to the coast, they come crashing, they stop, they go back. Unless, of course, Hashem breaks the rules and sends a tsunami. Then the nature breaks the laws, the rules that it's governed by. But otherwise, Hashem has put limitations in nature of what it could do. People are afraid that some asteroid or some comet may come crashing to this world. And that's what some scientists claim happened many years ago. And they attribute the extinction of dinosaurs to that. Hashem does not allow, the Gemara says, for all these dangerous comets or asteroids to get too close to the earth. Hashem does not want this to happen, that the world should suffer such a major catastrophe. So He keeps it at a safe distance. They're there for other reasons. Comets and asteroids are all there for a reason, but not too close to earth. So Hashem has put all these limitations because Hashem is interested in a certain order, in a certain discipline. He doesn't want things to become chaotic. Number three is very interesting. Whoever remembers Parshat Bereshit, what happened after Chet Adam Arishon? After Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava ate from the tree that they were not supposed to eat, what did Hashem do? Besides telling Adam and Chava what kind of a life you're going to have, that you're going to have to work hard, you're going to have childbirth, it's not going to be easy, what else did Hashem do? Because He didn't trust man. He did not trust man. He might make another mistake and do what? He might come and eat from the tree of life. And then what will happen? What's wrong with that? What if He wants to, let him? And he will live forever. Great! Wouldn't you want to live forever? Or you're tired? What's wrong for 1,000 years? So the commentaries explain there's a big problem with that. If the human being were to live forever, he would think of himself as God, and he will come to mislead people to think, I'm God. Who is an example of this in our history? Paro, who made himself a Nelil. He made himself like a God. In other words, some individuals, not everybody would think like that, but some may think like that. Some who would have this ability, to live many, many years. Human beings have all these wild ideas. And there have been individuals like that who had extreme ideas that they thought of themselves who knows what. So Hashem therefore does not allow people to live forever, does not allow them the ability to do just anything, so they should not come to mislead people in allowing others to think of them as some sort of God. In today's generation, we are more or less, we have this problem more or less in our hands. Why? Because scientists have conquered the oceans with submarines, with boats. They've conquered the air with airplanes and jets. They've conquered space with shuttles. And guess what they're thinking of doing next? They want to clone you. They want to clone human beings. They've done it with animals. They want to be God. Isn't that the same idea? They want to basically demonstrate that they're capable of doing everything. Curing everything. Curing cancer, curing this, curing this. But we know that every time a disease is cured, there's some other disease that comes about that they have no cure. There will always be some disease without any cure. So man should not think that he has conquered everything, that he can take care of himself. So therefore, the limitations are there for a reason. Human beings make continuous mistakes. Hashem wants them to make mistakes. He says, good, I want you to remember how frail you are, how you are a human being. You're from dirt. You're not a God. So if you ever become arrogant, I will show you. I will bring down the shuttle from the space. It will crash. I'm not giving you an explanation or any reason as to why it crashed and why it exploded, but I'm just showing you that things happen in life that remind those who are arrogant, don't be so arrogant. You're immortal. You're just an immortal being. So what do the rabbis tell us? In order for us not to be so arrogant, just remember, know where you come from and where you're headed. You're headed to the grave, and you're going to have a lot of worms eating you up. And you will decompose in that grave until everything is dirt. It's a little depressing. But it's necessary. It's necessary to remind one who's arrogant or one who's not thinking about his future, about his tachlit. Hey, eventually, yesh din veyesh cheshbon. You have to give a reckoning and accounting. And this is especially important in the generation of Mashiach, when there's a lot of arrogance, a lot of people who have made it very important, a lot of accomplishments, Nobel Prize, and they received a Nobel Prize for this and for that achievement, and just all the accomplishments that can get to somebody's head. We spoke about the limitation of time. How much does a person live? So rabbis tell us, it's actually a pasuk, Yemei shnotenu bahem 70 shana v'im b'gvorot 80 shana. 70, if you're healthy, and Hashem wants you to reach 80, you can go to 80. Some have gone to 90, some have gone to 100. Anybody recently know anybody that lived to 200? I don't think so, right?
116.
There's a limit. There's a limit to this time. Why does the time have to be limited? Not only because of what we said before, that one should not think of himself as a God, but for another reason too. Time is also limited so that we should remember that this is not the ikar haim. This is not the ikar life. Life down here in this olam is temporary. This is not the ikar. We only come here for a job that we need to accomplish, and once we're done, we leave. The rabbis call this a prosdor, a hallway. You're just going through. The ikar is the eternal life in olam haba, olam neshamot. Therefore, we're continuously reminded that this world is not the ikar, that this body is not the ikar because the body decomposes. It only lasts for a certain amount of years. And if we pay closer attention to all of this, we will also understand, we should understand, that therefore, because this world is only temporary, and because this body is only temporary, that therefore all the achievements of the human body are really insignificant. They should only be a means to an end, but not the end itself. All the food we eat, because we need to live. Is food a matara, a goal? No. Is money? For some people money is a goal, but it shouldn't be like that. If this world, if this life is temporary, if this body is temporary, if this body in this that we're in is limited, that means it is not the most important thing. And this life is not the most important thing. Everything is temporary. What is? Olam haba, for which we are working for. Therefore, everything that we accomplish here that is physical, only that is physical in nature, cannot be that important. Why do we go after it? Because we need it. In other words, it serves something. It helps us. It helps us accomplish our goal. Each one of us has some mission, and all that we have that is physical, whether it's a car, whether it's a house, a wife, a husband, all of this helps us. These are all tools to help us accomplish our goal. Are they an end in itself? No. That which is physical, therefore, should not be a priority, because it's not the most important thing in life. So what have we seen so far? That if one pays attention, close attention to this world, to this physical world, he will notice that there's some koach elyon, some divine power that we call God, that has placed certain limitations in this world for a reason. And these limitations that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put in place are working perfectly. I'll give you just one example, how they're working perfectly. Why doesn't everybody who goes to college want to become a doctor? There's some that go to college, they want to be lawyers. There's some that want to be CPAs. There's some that want to be, computer scientists. There's some that want to be astronomers. Why doesn't everybody want to be a doctor? Let's say we can get a job for everybody. There was not a problem of lack of position. And it's a guaranteed salary, beginning salary, first year, $120,000, besides benefits. How many of you would want to become a doctor? No, please. How many of you, let's say you're starting your life from scratch now, you're going to trade school or to college, right? You want to learn a profession, and I tell you, you know what? You want to be a doctor? Guaranteed position. I'll find you a job in a good place, not in Oklahoma City. Here, close by, right? And a good salary. But you have to study a good couple years, take the test, of course, and then, of course, graduate. How many of you would want to become a doctor? Any hands? Good. Okay, none. Good. Baruch Hashem. What does this prove? Everybody has some other idea of what they want to do, some other preference. So they're attracted to something else. None of you wanted to become a doctor. None of you are being pulled. I mean, you may admire doctors, you may like. I don't know if too many people like doctors because, but it's okay. But why didn't you all think of being a doctor? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this perfect balance in this world, where some people become carpenters, some people become doctors, some people become lawyers, some accountants, some astronomers. There's a little bit of everything in this world. There's a balance. Now, who made that? People on their own? No. Because I'm telling you, if you tell people that this pays better, they still will not necessarily go after what makes more money. They will go after what they enjoy, hopefully, if it's available. What they're attracted to, what will give them satisfaction. A lot of people are doing jobs there that they're not happy with. That's true. That's another problem. But if people were given a choice, they had this, and everybody would like to do what they really enjoy doing. And money is not always something that tempts people to do something. So what does this show? That there is a balance in creation. And Hashem put this balance in place. And Hashem put this balance in place and also expects of people how to behave and how to conduct themselves as well. In other words, this same God who's put all these restrictions, all these limitations, who's made this balance in this world, also has a plan of what He expects people to do, how He expects people to conduct themselves. In a couple weeks from now, I'm going to introduce to you, to some of you it may not be something completely new, but to some of you it will be, one of the most powerful systems that Hashem created in this world that limits one in a very significant way. And I said that in the very beginning, and that's the mazalot. So tonight we're not talking about them, I'm just letting you know that in a couple weeks from now we're going to get into that. That ma'arechet, that system, is one of the most powerful systems that He put into place. And without getting into the details of it, all I can tell you is, it is definitely limiting. Basically, one's mazal will determine what he will eventually do. Where he will eventually land, in other words, what kind of a position, where he will live, who he will marry. Just about everything is determined by that mazal. So that is very limiting. There's not that much flexibility. But why is that necessary? Since we're talking about limitations now, I'll just say it is necessary because if Hashem wants a certain order, if Hashem wants certain things to be done, then it's like a chessboard. Everyone has to be in a certain position to be able to win the game. You have to know how to move things around. You can't let human beings decide what they want to do and where they want to go completely, because then they may not do what's right. Hashem has a plan. He has a blueprint. And even though he allows some flexibility, after all there are wars, and I don't think he wants wars. He definitely doesn't want wars. He would love it if there would be shalom. So people are doing things against his wishes and against his blueprint. But nevertheless, in the end, everything falls into place. In the end, everything will fall into place the exact way that he wanted. That's what Mashiach is all about. Mashiach, the world is restored to its original blueprint. But what did we have till Mashiach? A long nightmare. Yeah, a long nightmare, unfortunately. Baruch Hashem that we have a short memory. Because we've had persecutions, we've had World War I, World War II, we had pogroms and Inquisition. Does anybody remember the Inquisition? It's only 500 years ago. Right? We were physically not around there, unless you were in a different reincarnation. And even then you wouldn't remember everything. You see what I mean? Unless you read it, you don't remember it. So all of this, unfortunately, was very, very sad for humanity and for the Jews. But in the end, everything will work out just fine. We have to just wait and be patient till Mashiach comes. So this system of astrology, of one's destiny and fate, or mazal, is a very important system that Hashem put into place, specifically to limit the movement of the human being in a way that Hashem wants. Okay, now that we understand a little bit of the benefits and the need of the limitations, let's go over a little bit to another area that also brings in limitations of a different type, but mostly only for the Jewish people, not the non-Jewish world. And what is that? The Torah. Torah is from the word hora'ah, instructions, because the Torah is like a manual of instructions on how to survive in this world, what the Jew needs to do in this world. And B'ezrat Hashem, eventually we'll talk about the Torah. How do we know that the Torah was given in the Shemaim, it was not made up by a human being? We'll get to that. But in the meantime, we need to understand that this book that we call Torah, and the additional books which contain the oral law, which is the Gemarot, the Mishnayot, the Shulchan Aruch, and so forth, all of them contain instructions, and many of these instructions are pretty limiting. And the limitations occur just about in every area of life. Let's begin with food. Well, there's a philosophy out there, or a way of thinking, that says, thou shalt not kill any animal. I'm sure you know people like that. If you live in India, you're walking with cows in the street. Because many of them don't eat meat. They don't kill. The cows is holy. There are vegetarians who don't believe in killing an animal or eating meat for whatever reason. The Torah says, no, I allow you, Hashem says, to kill an animal as long as it's for some direct benefit, like food, clothing. But I'm going to limit you. You can't have any. You can't have horse meat. You can't have anything you want. You could eat. But I'm going to limit you as to what you could eat. And you know what? Once you've made the right decision of choosing something you can eat, I'm going to limit it. I'm going to limit you on how you can kill the animal. You can't shoot it in the head. You can't electrocute it. I'm going to limit you on how you can kill this animal. Called shechita. And you can't have it just yet after that either. You have to drain the blood. You see, all of these are limitations. And what happens if there is a defect in the lungs? It's taref. It may not even be kosher. Until you put that piece of meat in the mouth, it's not so easy. There are many limitations. You have a fruit tree in your yard. Oh, you've been looking forward to have some nectarines. As soon as they come out, can you have them?
No.
You have to wait 3 years. Why can't I have them? We're not getting into this. We've had, Baruch Hashem, a very long series called Tamei Mitzvot, which lasted 3.5 years, where we went through every single mitzvah, more or less the reasons, more or less why Hashem gave us this specific mitzvah. But it's a limitation. And what happens after I collect all my wheat from the field? Can I eat it? No, there's truma, there's maaser sheni, maaser ani. I can't have it right away. There's a limitation. Then of course there's a rabbinic limitation that you first have to make a beracha before you put it in your mouth. That's rabbinic. So we see that all of these limitations in the Torah are somehow necessary. We are told that they are leto'elet or letovat ha'adam, they are for the benefit of one. What's the benefit? Well, we don't know exactly what the immediate benefit is, but we know what the common denominator is of all the mitzvot. That is that if we perform the mitzvot and stay away from doing any averah, we will accomplish our mission. Somehow, if we just follow these instructions and we do everything that's right and correct, then we will have done what is expected of us to do. Another example of a limitation, Shabbat. A whole week, I can do almost anything I want in the physical labor. I can sew, I can write, I can turn on the light. All of a sudden comes Shabbat, I need to abstain from 39 categories of functions. I didn't say work, I said function. There's a reason for that. Because not everything is really work that is prohibited, but it's a certain function, a physical function, a melacha, that is forbidden on Shabbat. Hashem wants us to taste Shabbat. Therefore, I want you to experience Shabbat, you need to abstain from the physical labor. You need to abstain from 39 melachot. Only then will you experience Shabbat. So, it's a limitation. What about money? Can you keep all the money that you made? Oh, you have to give tzedakah too. You have to share your wealth with others. That's a limitation. Husband and wife are together. They very much love each other. Can they be all the time together? But they really care for each other. No. 11, 12 days a month, until a certain age, you have to separate. You still need to respect each other, but there's no touching, there's no intimacy. You show intimacy in other ways, not in the physical way. And that is actually a time where the two can be tested, if they really care for each other, when there's no physical contact. A limitation. Then we have a couple more interesting ones. Bal tashchit. You're cleaning up your garage, and you say, well, I don't need this, I'm going to throw it away. Can you just throw away something that is useful? That's called bal tashchit. A shirt that still has use, you can't just throw it away. Donate it to, what's the name of the organization? Salvation Army.
No, why go to Salvation Army? Go to Jewish thrift stores.
Jewish thrift stores, yeah.
All over Fairfax.
You mean Persians?
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Jewish Federation thrift stores. Why give
Really?
money away
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
Salvation Army?
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Anyway, Bal tashchit. You can't just destroy a tree that is giving fruit. It's also dangerous to take down a tree unless you need a place to build or something. Bal tashchit, it's a limitation, but it's necessary. You can't neuter a cat, or I don't know what word they use for dogs. But the same thing, you cannot sterilize it. A woman cannot do anything to herself too physically, to her body, that is, that she should not be able to have children. You cannot mate two species that don't go together, different species. You cannot inflict pain on an animal. Tzar balei chayim. And then, of course, we have a long list of forbidden relationships. But I'd like to marry her. Yeah, but she's not Jewish. Or I'd like to marry her, but you're a Kohen, you cannot marry a divorcee. Or, you know what, I don't like this woman, but I like her sister. And you're already married to that woman. Well, you cannot marry your wife's sister if your wife is still alive. There are limitations. These are called arayot. There's a list of forbidden relationships. You can't just have what you want. So all of these are there for a reason. So I just gave you a few examples of the limitations that the Torah put in place in order that we accomplish whatever it is that we need to accomplish. Are we done? No. Then we have the limitations that the human being himself, on his own, imposed on himself and society. After all, what do we need a Congress for? Because they make the laws, right? We have the Supreme Court, we have the Congress and the Senate to make laws and to make amendments later, right, to the laws. What for? Because every country and every situation and every society needs to have a certain structure. You have laws that govern how to drive. Could you imagine if this was a place where you can just drive as fast as you want? And look what happens in Israel. No, really, it's sad. So many car accidents, so many casualties, more from accidents, car accidents, than from wars and from terrorism. A motorcyclist was just caught by the police last week, 2 weeks ago, driving at 224 kilometers an hour. You know how fast that is?
Nobody gave him a ticket?
No, of course, he took away his license, I think, too. And that wasn't the first time.
Okay.
That's about 135 miles an hour.
Straight from a motorcycle?
Yeah. Now, that's not only breaking the law, that's dangerous. All you need is for just a wrong move, one wrong move, even if he's wearing a helmet.
A little pebble.
A little pebble. He's crazy. We need rules of the road. A car is a dangerous vehicle. Look what drunk drivers do. So man has made his own limitations. What do we see from this? People complain the Torah is so restrictive. What about taxes? I mean, unless of course you're cheating on your taxes, we need restrictions. We need limitations. You can't just do anything you want in society. Why don't you allow yourself to be restricted by the Torah too? You're allowing yourself to be restricted by Uncle Sam. You're allowing yourself to be restricted by the city, by the state, by the country you live in, the government, the police. The same thing with the Torah. Why should the Torah be any different? No, here this I accept and this not. These restrictions are for the benefit. We just don't understand what the benefit is. Then we have, of course, the restrictions or the limitations that the musar, that the neshama dictates. Certain things that the subconscious mind, which is really the neshama, tells us, this is wrong, this is right. I should help. I should do this. You don't have to. But all of this is the musar. Musar meaning what is ethical, what is moral, what is correct. So the neshama understands these things, not the physical body, of course. What's the most difficult limitation of all that the human being has? In the very beginning we spoke about that you can't fly. Okay, some people can live without it. The most difficult limitation that the human being has, that he has the most trouble with, you know what it is? His midot, his character. Depending on what character he is. Imagine somebody who is a miser. Does everybody here know the difference between a miser and a stingy man? Stingy and miser. Stingy means I'm going to buy myself a Jaguar, but I'm not going to share it with somebody else. Or I'm going to enjoy something for myself and not lend somebody else. Because someone who's stingy he's not generous, does not share his wealth with somebody else. A miser, even if he has $1 million, does not even use it for himself. It's a sickness. He's sick. You have all this money, enjoy it. But because he's a miser, and there are people like that. If you look at the Guinness Book World of Records, you'll see there a picture of a woman in England who was very wealthy and was going around the streets with rags selling soap. It's a sickness. A person who is born with certain inclinations, whether it's stinginess, whether it's anger, whether it's laziness, whatever it is, whether it's the desire or the pursuit of honor, money, or women, regardless, or he loves to drink or eat. Everybody has some weakness. These are all sorts of midot, or tchunot, characteristic. These are difficult because they enslave you. It's very hard to kick a habit. Very difficult. Is it impossible? No. Because guess what? Even though we are born with certain weaknesses, these are our challenge. Hashem has given us the kelim, the tools that we need to overcome whatever weakness we may have. Will we change our nature completely? No. But can you control yourself? Yes. At least control. So we are being given the kelim, And therefore the rabbis tell us, Ena Kadosh Baruch Hu ba bitrunya in biryotav. Kadosh Baruch Hu will never demand of one more than what he can really do. Never. Hashem will never give you a challenge if you cannot handle it. Hashem does not want people to commit suicide or to have a nervous breakdown. In other words, if one has a challenge, it's because Hashem has given this challenge for whatever reason, and He has given him the tools to deal with that challenge. He has a weakness, you can overcome that weakness. You can control yourself. Rabbis also tell us, Lo alecha melacha ligmor. A Jew might think, oh, there's so much to do. Who says you got to finish everything? You're not completely free to just not do anything. You do as much as you can. A person who does everything he can will accomplish a great deal. We sometimes underestimate what we can do. What I want to do in the last few minutes that we have is I want to share with you what the Hasidut has brought in the past 250 years to the world of Jewry. And that is the key, or one of the most important keys, on how to overcome just about any troubles that we may be having that is limiting us in some sense. I'm not necessarily talking about a problem that one has with his job or money problems. I'm talking about midot, talking about problems with people. Just one may feel that he's very depressed, things are not going well for him. The Hasidut pretty much did not introduce, but emphasized that what the key midah, the key characteristic of being able to solve many of life's problems is called simcha. It's called happiness. When one works on developing the midah of simcha, he's able to overcome many, many troubles in life. He will drive away sadness and depression. Simcha is tied with bitachon, with having reliance in Hashem, trusting in Hashem. And the best way to understand this is through a famous mashal that is brought down of somebody that asked a servant of his to please carry a very heavy box, down the street for him. Can you do me a favor? And this servant was very tired after a long day, and he starts to pick up the box, and it really weighs over 100 pounds. He's just not in the mood. He says, this is too heavy for me. I really can't do it. Can you ask somebody else to do it? He says, why don't you look inside the box first, and let me tell you, whatever is in there is for you. Oh, really? He opens up the box and he sees it's full of gold and jewels. And that's for him. You think he's going to complain about how heavy it is? He's going to grab it and run and take it with him to his home. Hashem has given us the Torah. And a lot of people think, oh, it's so heavy, I can't take it, I can't pick it up. Do you know what's in there? All the jewels, this is all for you. This is a reward for you. This is for the neshama. You know what is awaiting for you in Olam Haba? If one were to open up the Torah, if one were to open up the box, he would totally ignore how heavy it is. It wouldn't even be heavy to him. He would just not look at how heavy it is. Because if you like something, it's not heavy. If you love somebody, you don't care about their faults. You don't see their faults even. You ignore everything. Akol pesha'im techaseh ahava, as the pasuk says. You just ignore. You really care for somebody. You ignore everything else. Nobody's perfect, right? And this is for yourself. This is for you. So if one has the right attitude, if one has simcha, Hasidut says, even those who are weak all of a sudden become strong. The simcha gives them strength to continue to live. One who has simcha, all the difficulties that he may have had disappear. They don't seem to exist. Simcha also, the rabbis tell us, is the key, or one of the most important keys of being able to defeat the Yetzer Hara. Because the Yetzer Hara breeds in those who, especially in those who have sadness and depression. So therefore Simcha is a very powerful way of defeating the Yetzer Hara. And I think the Baal Shem Tov brings down that through Simcha, one is able to be mevatel, to annul, to cancel all the gezerot ra'ot. In other words, simcha is a very powerful midah. In other words, even though we may have certain limitations, But our attitude in how to deal with this is very important. And if one is sameach, one is happy, then obviously it doesn't appear to him that he's limited in any way. We've spoken so far about the limitations that the human being has. I want to conclude with that which has no limitations whatsoever. The physical body is limited, it needs to be limited, but there is something within us that is not limited, and that's the neshama. Because we said before that the physical body decomposes. It has a time limit. It runs out of fuel after a while. Right? It goes to the grave. What is not limited is the neshama. The neshama is eternal. The neshama's accomplishments are almost unlimited. We make the decisions how much Torah we want to learn. During the time a person is reading a newspaper, he could be saying Tehillim. He could be learning Torah. What a waste of time. Unless he needed that piece of news, it's really complete gossip. It's completely a waste of time. What for? How could you exchange this for that? We make the decision how much. There's almost no limit. One could learn 17 hours a day, as some boys do in the yeshiva. Yeah.
Can I just say two things?
Yeah, go ahead.
One is that the Chofetz Chaim says that somebody learns while traveling,
Right.
gets 5 times the reward, based on the pasuk in Shir, which I can show you.
Right.
That's number one. And the Vilna Gaon says that for every word a person learns Torah, gets 613 mitzvahs. Chofetz Chaim figured out that a person in 1 minute could say 100 to 200 words in 1 minute.
That's right.
So imagine how many mitzvahs a person gets. Plus on Shabbos, if you learn Torah, you get 1,000 times the reward. So if a person
Shabbos,
learns Torah for 1 hour on Shabbos,
it's worth more.
60 million mitzvahs.
Right.
1 hour.
And now that we have the technologies of CDs and tape recorders, while you're driving and you're stuck in traffic, just stick one in. And Zalman will give you as many CDs as you want.
Even better than that. You go online, you can listen to thousands of sure.
Exactly.
You can
Yes.
download.
Yeah, so anyway, so the neshama is not as limited. It's not limited in the learning of the Torah. It's not limited in how much yirat shamayim it wants to acquire, the fear of heaven. It's not limited in how many mitzvot it wants to do. You can visit the sick people almost every other day if you have the time. In other words, nobody's going to limit you, right? And that is why the Mesilat Yesharim, I think it's in his introduction. Mesilat Yesharim is one of the most important books on Musar, Jewish ethics. I think it's in the introduction. He says that the purpose of our entire presence in this world is not for this world, it's for Olam Haba. Our entire presence here is not because we need to be here. We shouldn't forget ourselves. Our entire presence here is in order to get to Olam Haba. Therefore, one should continuously remember that what's really important is the Kiyum HaMitzvot. And everything else is secondary. That is why in Uval Etzion, there's a special prayer. Shelon niga larik. That may be the will of Hashem that we don't waste our time and work so hard and not accomplish anything that's really important. In other words, Yiratzon may be the will of Hashem that we should be able to distinguish between the Ikar and the Tafel. Between that which is truly important and deserves our attention and that which is insignificant. The problem is, of course, that people make the mistake of mixing up what's important and what's not important. If one does not learn Torah, then obviously he will not have the direction or the counsel to be able to make the right decisions. So Baruch Hashem, all of you who have come here tonight, you've made the right decision. Because there's a lot of people there waiting online to get into a movie. What a difference. What a difference. This is a true accomplishment. This will enrich our neshama, and hopefully this will also give us what we need to be able to deal with the problems in life, the restrictions, the limitations. This is why the rabbis tell us that one who is a true free man is who? Whoever is a ben Torah. A free man? We just said before that all of this is limitations and restrictions. No, once you learn Torah, the Torah frees you from the Yetzer Hara. The Torah frees you from being governed completely by the Mazal. And the Torah will also free one from being taken before his time through the Malach HaMavet. So the Torah offers a tremendous protection besides giving us the direction of getting to Olam Haba B'ezrat Hashem. Okay, so we'll continue next week. If you have any questions, I'll take them.